The diner buzzed with the hum of conversation and clinking utensils. A cheerful hostess escorted an elderly black man, Mr. Henry Jacobs, to a corner booth. He wore a neatly pressed suit, his gray beard impeccably trimmed, and he carried a well-worn leather briefcase. As Mr. Jacobs settled into his seat, a young waitress, Becky, approached. She glanced at him briefly, her expression stiff. "What can I get you?" she asked curtly, not bothering to hide her impatience. "Good afternoon," Mr. Jacobs said with a warm smile. "I'll have the chicken pot pie and a cup of black coffee, please." Becky scribbled on a notepad but didn't respond. Instead, she rolled her eyes and walked off without another word. Nearby, a table of customers noticed the interaction, exchanging uncomfortable glances. Minutes later, Becky returned with the coffee, slamming it down on the table. Some of the liquid splashed over the rim, staining the saucer. Mr. Jacobs' smile faltered but remained in place. "Thank you, young lady," he said politely. "Sure," Becky muttered, already walking away. As we continue with this story, please support this channel by clicking on the subscribe button. You should also turn on the notification bell for more intriguing stories. Thank you. At a nearby table, a middle-aged white woman named Linda sat with her teenage daughter, Claire. They had witnessed the waitress' behavior and whispered to each other. "That was uncalled for," Claire said, frowning. "It's not right," Linda agreed. "But let's see how this unfolds." Becky returned with Mr. Jacobs' meal, practically dropping the plate in front of him. This time, Linda couldn't stay silent. She called Becky over. "Excuse me, can we speak to your manager?" Linda asked. "Why? What for?" Becky replied, her tone defensive. "It's about how you're treating that gentleman," Linda said firmly. "This is unacceptable." "Mind your own business," Becky snapped, walking away. Mr. Jacobs overheard but remained composed, calmly eating his meal. Becky's behavior towards Mr. Jacobs is a complex combination of her personal frustrations and underlying prejudices. Though she was simply having a not-so-good day, her actions stemmed from a habitual dismissiveness and bias against people who didn't fit her preferred image of desirable customers. While Becky may not have explicitly seen herself as racist, her actions reflected ingrained prejudice that she had never questioned or addressed. Minutes later, Linda flagged down another server and asked for the manager. A tall man with salt and pepper hair, wearing a name tag that read John, approached. "Is there a problem?" Linda gestured toward Mr. Jacobs. "Your waitress has been incredibly rude to that gentleman." She slammed his coffee down and barely spoke to him. "It's clear she's treating him differently." John's expression darkened. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll handle it." John walked over to Mr. Jacobs, who looked up with kind eyes. "Sir, I'm John, the manager. Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine," Mr. Jacobs said gently. "But thank you for asking." John turned to Becky, who stood near the counter, watching uneasily. "A word, please," he said sharply. Becky followed him into the back, and their heated conversation could be faintly heard in the dining area. Meanwhile, Linda and Claire decided to approach Mr. Jacobs. Unknowingly to Becky and the manager, John, someone in the diner who had noticed what had been happening from the start, was recording the whole scenario. "Hi, sir," Linda began. "We've been watching, and we're so sorry for how you've been treated. It's wrong." Mr. Jacobs' eyes softened. "Thank you for your concern. Unfortunately, this isn't new to me. But kindness like yours reminds me there's still good in the world." Just then, John returned, looking flustered. "Sir, your meal is on the house. I deeply apologize for Becky's behavior. She's been reprimanded." "Thank you, but that won't be necessary," Mr. Jacobs said. "I've already paid." John hesitated, then nodded. "If there's anything else I can do, please let me know." As Mr. Jacobs prepared to leave, Linda asked, "May I ask what's in the briefcase?" He chuckled. "Just some papers." I'm a retired teacher, but I still mentor young students. Today, I was reviewing scholarship applications. Claire's eyes widened. That's amazing. Education is the key to breaking barriers, Mr. Jacobs said. And kindness is the key to understanding. As he left the diner, Becky stood by the kitchen, her face pale. John informed her that Mr. Jacobs was a regular customer and a beloved figure in the community. Overwhelmed with shame, Becky decided to apologize personally. "Sir," she called out as he reached the door. He turned, his expression calm. I'm sorry for how I treated you. It was wrong." Mr. Jacobs smiled gently. "Apology accepted. Treat everyone with respect, young lady. It will take you far in life." The diner fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. As he stepped outside, Linda and Claire watched, inspired by his grace. "That man is extraordinary," Linda said softly. "He's the kind of person who changes the world," Claire replied. On this particular day in question, Becky had already dealt with personal stress, a confrontation with her landlord over unpaid rent, and a tense call from her estranged sibling, which had left her irritable. However, these external stressors merely amplified the disdainful attitude she often displayed toward older customers and minorities, seeing them as less deserving of her respect and attention. Inside, Becky vowed to do better, while John deliberates on implementing diversity training for his staff, determined to ensure such an incident wouldn't happen again. Mr. Jacobs' quiet strength and unwavering dignity left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed the events of that day. The next day, when the incident with Mr. Jacobs unfolded and went viral, the restaurant management took swift action. Becky was suspended pending an investigation. Once the facts were confirmed, the management issued a formal apology to Mr. Jacobs and a stern last warning was given to Becky, her employers citing their zero-tolerance policy toward discriminatory behavior. At this time, Becky's employment was threatened. In addition, the restaurant quickly implemented mandatory sensitivity training for all employees, ensuring that incidents like this would not occur again. Becky's warning letter was also accompanied by a broader community backlash, forcing her to confront her behavior and its consequences. Becky, initially defensive and resentful, later reflected on the incident. Facing widespread condemnation and isolation, she sought therapy and anti-bias education to understand and address her prejudice. Her journey towards accountability was not easy, but it marked the beginning of a transformative period in her life. Mr. Jacobs, on the other hand, graciously accepted the restaurant's apology and became a symbol of resilience and dignity in the face of prejudice. His story sparked broader conversations about ageism and racism, inspiring others to challenge biases in their communities. Not long after the viral video of Becky's behavior at the restaurant spread across social media, her life took a dramatic turn. Public scrutiny intensified, and her name became synonymous with poor treatment and prejudice. Strangers recognized her on the street, often pointing or whispering as she passed. Her once quiet commute to and from work became unbearable. One evening, as Becky stood on the platform at a bustling train station, the reality of her actions confronted her head-on. A young man, scrolling through his phone nearby, looked up, did a double take, and approached her. "Hey, aren't you the waitress from that viral video?" he asked, his tone sharp. Becky froze, the weight of her infamy crashing down on her. Before she could respond, others on the platform turned to watch. Another person chimed in, "Yeah, you disrespected that sweet old man. What's wrong with you?" The murmurs grew louder, and a few people began recording her with their phones. Becky's face burned with humiliation. I made a mistake," she stammered, her voice barely audible. "I'm not proud of what happened." "You think saying that now fixes anything?" the young man pressed. "You embarrassed yourself and hurt that man. People like you shouldn't work in customer service." The crowd's eyes bore into her, their expressions a mix of disappointment and scorn. Overwhelmed, Becky fled the platform, her heart pounding as she boarded the next train without even checking its destination. The incident left her shaken to the core. That night, Becky sat alone in her apartment, replaying the confrontation in her mind. She realized she couldn't continue working at the restaurant. The shame was too heavy to bear, and the scrutiny had made her job intolerable. The next morning, she submitted her resignation letter, citing personal reasons. Despite resigning voluntarily, the weight of her actions stayed with her. Becky avoided social media and public places for weeks, seeking solace in isolation. Over time, though, she continued from where she stopped, attending workshops and therapy sessions to confront her biases and reflect on how her actions had hurt others. For Mr. Jacobs, news of Becky's resignation and subsequent struggles reached him through mutual acquaintances. Instead of reveling in her downfall, he expressed hope that she could turn her life around. "Growth comes from facing hard truths," he said in an interview. "I only hope she learns from this and becomes better." This story not only deepened Becky's fall from grace, but also highlighted the intense social accountability of the digital age. It underscored how moments of public shame could lead to introspection and, ultimately, personal transformation. We need to do better in our society in the way we treat others. Let's see people as people and treat everyone with respect and dignity. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to Home of Stories TV. And do not forget to turn on the notification bell for more inspiring stories. Drop your comments below, let us know your thoughts.